Hello, and welcome to Introduction to Sociology, and this is my lesson on the sociological imagination. Welcome to this. This is one of the most important concepts in the course, is the sociological imagination by C. Wright Mills. It is in this book, Understanding Society, the first chapter. If you have not yet gotten your book, I have uploaded a version of the sociological imagination to the Canvas site, and you can find it under files. So let's start here. I want to start by reading you the first paragraph. C. Wright Mills says, now when he says men, he means people. It's archaic sexist language, but a lot of people don't know that, which is good that they don't know that because they're unaware of the sexism of it. So, but I'll change a couple words here and there to reflect a more egalitarian um, viewpoint. It says nowadays, first paragraph. Nowadays, people often feel like their private lives are a series of traps. They sense that within their everyday worlds, they cannot overcome their troubles, and in this feeling, they are often quite correct. What ordinary people are directly aware of and what they try to do are bounded by the private orbits in which they live. Their visions and their powers are limited to the close up scenes of job, family, neighborhood. In other milieu, social context, they move vicariously and remain spectators. And the more they become, however vaguely, of ambitions and of threats which transcend their immediate locales, the more trapped they seem to feel. Okay, so Mills is basically saying that, that people have these troubles that they don't seem to be able to overcome. And the reasons why they don't can't seem to overcome it is because they of the social context that they are in, not just that their environment, but that's a big part of it. The environment gets created by the social context here. So Mills calls upon people to use what's something called the sociological imagination. And I'm here in this book on page 3, about two-thirds of the way down. The sociological imagination enables us to grasp history and biography and the relations between the two within society. That is its task and its promise. To recognize this task and this promise is the mark of the classic social analyst. And this is the big deal, okay? The connection between biography and history, between the individual and society, between private troubles and public issues, which he goes on later there. Um, history made you. History made me too. Um, Without certain things happening in history, our lives are very different. We might not even exist. My favorite example is what if Mexico wins the Mexican American War? Well, our lives are very different. Who gets all that gold from California? See, our lives are very different. So things happen in history that affect our biographies. And so this is the task of the classic social analysts. Okay. So Mills goes on to say here that I became unplugged. Mills goes on to say that um, towards the bottom of page 3, no social study that does not come back to the problems of biography, of history, and of their intersections within a society has completed its intellectual journey. Whatever the specific problems of the classic social analysts, however limited or however broad the features of social reality they have examined, those who have been imaginatively aware of the promise of their work have consistently asked three sorts of questions. One, what is the structure of this particular society as a whole? What are its essential components and how are they related to one another? How does it differ from other varieties of social order? Within it, what is the meaning of any particular feature for its continuance and for its change? What is the structure of this particular society as a whole. What we mean by social structure is the organization of society. You see, we cannot just throw a bunch of people together in a geographical area and call it a society. It has to be organized. Okay, within that society, there's got to be certain kinds of parts that all relate to one another. Human beings have to have statuses, which are like the positions that people occupy and roles that go along with it. Okay, so kind of like the expectations that go along with that status. Okay, so for example, I am a sociology instructor, and there's a certain expectation that goes along with that. But there's a certain kind of social part of the social structure is that I am part of an educational institution. Okay, and so are you as students. Okay, so these different parts all relate to one another. Um, See my lesson on functionalism on the next lecture here, okay, about how the parts relate to one another. So we're looking at what are its essential components, how are related to one another, the organization of society. Different societies are organized in different ways. Uh, for example, in the United States, the relationship between government and religion is one of separation. Now, it's true that culturally, um, religion influences government and influences society on a cultural level, but the religious leaders are not the political leaders in American society. Okay. Um, is that true in every society? No. In some societies, the religious leaders are also the political leaders. And so there's a stronger relationship between religion and politics, or religion and government. Okay. So, so this kind of cross cultural comparison or cross social comparison is also important here. So, um, second question of the classic social analyst is, where does the society stand in human history? What are the mechanics by which it is changing? What is its place within and its meaning for the development of humanity as a whole? How does any particular feature we are examining affect, and how is it affected by the historical period in which it moves? And this period, what are its essential features? How does it differ from other periods? What are its characteristic ways of history making? Okay, I think one of the most important parts of that question is, what are the mechanics by which it is changing? How do societies change? In Generally, societies change through economics. Something happens on the economics level. Um, Karl Marx was an economic reductionist, for example. He thought that everything started at the physical world, okay, and then that changed culture. Max Weber, the another classic social analyst, said usually that's right, but not always, so sometimes culture could change. So, like things like economics, okay? For example, um, one of the big changes in our lifetimes has been internet technology, okay? Why has that come to be? Well, to make life more efficient, okay? So, there's more, things run more efficiently through the internet and things. So, uh, many years ago, if you wanted to go to college, you couldn't just sign up online. You had to go wait in line at the college and with a paper filled out, and they would stamp it. You would pay probably cash or check or something, and that would be that. Nowadays, you sign up online and you pay probably through credit card or something, and it's much more efficient. Okay, it doesn't mean that our lives are any easier because we just have to be more productive. Okay, that's what I think at least. So it makes things more efficient, the internet. So that's an economic reason why we have why life has changed. Another reason ways that societies change is through social movements. Sometimes people gather together and they are dissatisfied with the social condition, so they organize and work for change. In the United States, I think the civil rights movement is the prime example of that. Third, sometimes in moments of crises, societies will change. 9/11 changed a lot of things, for example. So those three things, mostly economic reasons, but sometimes social movements and sometimes moments of crises will drive a society to change. Okay, so this is those are some of the mechanics by which societies change. Okay, so a lot of these things, the social conditions that we experience now, are products of history. Okay, I'll get to that more in a bit. Third question: what varieties of men and women now prevail in the society and in this period? And what varieties are coming to prevail? In what ways are they selected and formed, liberated and repressed, made sensitive and blunted? What kinds of human nature are revealed in the conduct and character we observe in the society in this period? And what is the meaning for human nature of each and every feature of the society we are examining? I don't really know what he means by human nature there, to be perfectly honest. But we can talk about what varieties of men and women now prevail in this society. Okay, the people who prevail. Who are the ones on top? Who are the ones at the bottom? Who has the power? Who can give the orders? And who follows them? Generally, the ones that prevail in American society are rich white men. The country was founded by and for rich white men. You had to be a white male property owner in order to vote in when the United States first came into being. Now that's changed, but it doesn't mean everything's equal now. There are certain people with more power and more prestige and can get their way more than others. Okay, and this is part of the social structure. Okay, this is part of the organization of society. So race, class, and gender are organizing principles in American society in particular. So there's a social ranking there. Okay, so um, this all leads to my next part of here I want to talk about is the difference between troubles and issues. Bottom of page 4 here in the reader. Troubles occur within the character of the individual and within the range of his immediate relations with others. They have to do with the self and with those limited areas of social life, which he or she is directly personally aware. Okay, so troubles are limited to the individual biological entity. Okay, and an immediate locale there. Issues are wider. They have to do with matters that transcend local environments of the individual and the range of their inner life. Okay, they have to do with social organization. Okay, so um, issues, or troubles affect like a small number of people. I'm in a race. I sprained my ankle. That's a trouble. Issues is I'm running the Boston Marathon and a bomb goes off. That's an issue. Okay. And then I sprain my ankle or get, more injured because of that bomb. Okay. Uh, Mills talks about many examples of issues here. And I think unemployment is the best example. Um, there's when people are unemployed, they experience it subjectively as a trouble. They think of it as like their own private trouble and they're going to try to solve it by getting a job. But unemployment is a major part of the social structure. Okay. So there are not enough jobs to go around for everyone who wants one in American society. Think about it. If that were true, it would be very difficult for your boss to fire you. So these um, other things, war, marriage, and divorce, and things like that, and the metropolis, things like that. It's like these are like, and there's like certain like issues that come along with that, which people think of as troubles, and they can't seem to overcome. So these troubles that people subjectively experience are really issues that have been embedded in the structure of society that's been constructed historically. by which some people have more power and prestige and wealth than others. Okay, see how I did that? See how I tied in all of those things? Okay, so when an individual feels like that their private lives are a series of traps, what they often fail to understand is that these are really issues that transcend their own, like, social, that, their immediate environment. And these are issues, again, constructed by the organization of society through history, in which and resulting in conditions in which some people have more power, wealth, and prestige than others. Okay, that's the sociological imagination, is to be able to um, imaginatively, you know, become aware of how somebody's private troubles are really public issues. The relationship between the biography of an individual and the historical circumstances that created that individual. Okay, this is your task. Okay, is to do this in the paper. All right, so this is your assignment. Is to I have this assignment sheet is in Canvas, so under files. So please go along with me here. Your assignment is to write a 5 to 6 page paper that shows how your biography, the story of your life, was shaped by historical and social and historical forces, the story of society, and or the relationship between your private troubles and public issues. Okay, here's how to do it. The first 1 to 1.5 pages should be an overview of your life, where you're from, what your family did for a living, and the important relationships and events in your life. The last 3 to 4 pages should show the relationship between your biography and history. In other words, show how social factors shaped your biography. Okay, so to do this well, you have to do some internet research, avoid Wikipedia, and cite your sources in whatever format you'd like. Okay, you can do this in ASA, MLA, Chicago. If you want to impress me, ASA. If you do not know how to cite, go to the Purdue University Online Writing Lab, or OWL, okay, OWL. And they have many resources there if you have any questions on how to cite. At least start there, okay? So, if your life has been trouble free, you can say so. But, you know, dig into why your life's been trouble free. If your parents hit it big in the dot-com boom, talk about that. But talk about how, like, your life's been trouble free because of the dot-com boom. Okay, so brainstorm. Think about the seemingly impersonal and remote historical forces that shape the most basic, intimate aspects of your life. Okay, think about those kinds of things. You might want to think about if you've got this trouble, if you have a trouble, and if you realize, hey, I'm not the only one, that's a sign that it's an issue. Like if you've been unemployed or been living in poverty or something like that, you're like, wait a second, I'm not the only one that this has happened to. That seems to tell you that it's due in a strong part by the organization of society. And this is what we're doing. Okay. So, um, these are some topics you might want to explore, but it's not an exhaustive list. The economy. Um, the economy changes a lot of things. Um, what people do for a living really shapes their biography. You can tell this when the economy changes and people either have to do something else for a living or they are doing nothing for a living. Okay. The economy changes a lot of things. So if your parents were, like, again, in tech or something like that, you can talk about the tech boom. Okay. Um, Immigration. Generally, people just don't pack up and go just because they want to. I mean, a few individuals do, but in large numbers, there's usually some push factors and pull factors going on. What are people trying to escape, first of all? Usually it's something economic, such as like the economy of a particular country or area is not very good. There's a lot of people living in poverty and they wish to escape it, or there's some kind of political repression going on. Okay. And so, if your family comes from one of these countries, for example, you can do so. I could, for example, write about the potato famine in Ireland, okay, and how that led to part of my family's immigration. Um, there's also pull factors. Why did your family come to the United States? Why didn't they go somewhere else? What was it about here? Okay, what were the pull factors? Um, why is the United States so economically, developed compared to other countries? Okay, discuss. Poverty. You can talk about poverty as a public issue. For public issues, I want to generally get some facts about poverty, some kind of statistics, some causes, and some consequences. So, approach this again like I'm not the only one. Okay, this happens to a lot of people, and these are some of the consequences, and it had these consequences on me, on my biography. You might want to talk about something called the feminization of poverty, which is the which is the tendency for single moms to live in poverty. Okay, this is a big deal. Now, in the United States, women have always been more economically vulnerable than men. However, there's single moms tend to live in poverty more than either um, married people with children or single fathers. Okay, and there's a lot of reasons for that you can dig into. Religion, not so much your personal religion, but I want you to talk about like how religion shaped your not your beliefs and things like that, but things that you have done, choices you've made, or choices made on your behalf. Okay, and give me kind of a history lesson on you know on religion to a certain extent. Okay, how did a certain religion get to where you were living, for example? Could be it, or what are some of the the doctrines of your religion which shape your biography. So things like that. Um, Terrorism and war. Let's put this together. I'm not so much interested in how terrorism affects us personally. A long time ago, when I gave this assignment, people talked about 9/11 and how it made them depressed. Well, I don't, it made us all, you know, depressed in a certain way, okay? But how did it shape your biography? Um, did you go to Afghanistan? Did you go to Iraq? Did people who are close to you do so? Did they come back in differently from, say, PTSD? Or worse, did they not come back? Okay, what happened here? Give me a history lesson on these wars or terrorist acts and things and how it shaped your biography. Maybe something, a reaction to 9/11 is, are you treated different at airports? That's another possibility. Education, talk about the structure of education in American society or the society in which you live. I have for example, I have a lot of students from Hong Kong who study in the United States because Hong Kong's education system is all about testing in order to get into a university that's very difficult to get into. And for many, for those who don't make it, their next option is to go to the United States and get an education in the United States. Okay. Um, you could talk about why you're not at Yale, okay? Unless you happen to be at Yale and taking this class for some reason. But why are you not at Yale? Okay, where do you fit in the structure of education? Um, you might want to look up something called California's Master Plan for Education. That shapes the education system quite a bit here. I'm going to take on a few of these things: gender relations, sexual attitudes, social movements, race relations, and basically get down to social movements in general. How would your life be different if there were no social movements? The civil rights movement, for example, is the most successful social movement in the United States. Um, and many people are living different lives than their parents, grandparents, great grandparents because of the civil rights movement. What did it do? Okay. Um, Same thing with gender relations. Women are living very different lives than men are, and you know, and but not only that, women are living very different lives than their mothers and grandmothers and great grandmothers. There's more transgender and genderqueer people than there used to be, and gender is changing. What are the mechanisms by which gender is changing? Okay, about sexual attitudes. Okay, the lives of LGBTQ people in the United States is very different than it was, say, 40 years ago when I was in high school. Okay, it's um, what happened, what changed. Okay, for all of these things, what are the things that changed? Media. Let's talk about. I don't want to get so much into how the media has affected you know, your attitudes, beliefs, feelings, and things like that, even though you can't get into that. But one, talk about the historical construction of the media. For example, sometimes women in my class would like to write about the media and body image and how maybe it shaped things like eating disorders or anorexia, bulimia, etc., which is fine. But it's different if these are in the media from the 1800s, for example, where you had pamphlets and newspapers and magazines and things like that. The media has expanded so much that women are getting these messages all the time. So that's part of the technological development of the media and advertising, and these are have really had more of an effect than the messages did, say, in the 1800s. Medicine and healthcare, you can take this on. One of the best papers I ever read was a paper of a woman who had heart surgery on the day she was born. She had a heart defect and she could have died, but because of certain medical techniques, her life was saved. So she went through the history of the diagnosis of the heart defect, the history of the surgical techniques to fix it, and the and how her family had health insurance. How her family came to have health insurance. It was an excellent paper. This one little event that had there's all sorts of historical factors that came together so that she was able to survive. Okay, the diagnosis, the treatment, and the how to pay for it. All of these things came together. Without one of those things, she doesn't live. So it was excellent. Disease is a hard one. If you choose disease, try to pick one that's very, say, social. What I mean is like there's a lot of social factors involved with it. Um, there are some diseases that just seem to be more of a biological thing, but there's some that are like that have social components. Expand on those. Okay, crime. You can talk about crime as a social issue. Um, in a Maybe you've been a victim of crime and it really affected you. Maybe you've had some dealings with the criminal justice system. Maybe you were in a gang. talk about that. Why are there gangs? Why is there crime? What are the causes and consequences of crime from one end or another? Okay, so the due date is on this handout here. It is, and if you are dissatisfied with your grade, you can rewrite this paper as many times as you wish up until the end of the course. So see the syllabus for that. Late papers lose the rewrite option and will be held to a higher standard. If you need any help, send me an email, make an appointment. I want to help you with this. Okay? So that is it for the sociological imagination. Good luck to you and happy writing. Okay, bye.